this is just the beginning of the AI revolution, $4 trillion on its way.
Sure, and long term, you may be very well right, but are you not concerned about this plus or minus 2% that the company is reporting on revenue, simply because the market wants the company to beat and beat well every quarter?
Yeah, if you looked up sandbag special in the dictionary, you'd see this guidance. And I think Street's going to look through it. I think there's a stock that probably will be up even on the conference call, because if you look at everything that they did here in terms on the data center, you could Hopper, we could be talking 5, 7, 8 billion per quarter. That was just ultimately many thought it could just be a few billion. So as this all plays out and you start to look at numbers over the next, call it 12 to 18 months, the godfather of AI, Jensen, Nvidia, continue to be in that Mount Rushmore, and it just shows it's starting with Nvidia. Now second, third, fourth derivatives playing out. That's why it's 9:30, 10 p.m. in this AI party that goes to 4 a.m.
Dan Ives from Wedbush Securities highlights Nvidia's strong performance, positioning the company as a key player in the AI revolution with the potential for significant growth. He praises Nvidia's revenue growth and guidance, emphasizing its market leadership in AI and its expanding role across various tech sectors. Ives also acknowledges some production challenges, such as Blackwell chip overheating and supply bottlenecks, but believes Nvidia can manage these issues. He sees the company's dominance in AI as a key driver of its success and maintains strong market confidence in its future. Overall, Ives emphasizes Nvidia's importance in the U.S. tech sector and its role in shaping the global economy, noting that while growth may slow in the future, Nvidia remains at the heart of the AI boom.
As this market digests this news, Dan, we are seeing a little pairing of those declines. You were looking for a mic drop quarter. Could you call this that?
I think you print this press release off and you can put it in the Louvre. Just frame it.
Oh.
Because look, I mean, what you're really seeing here, this is a stock that's going to be green tomorrow. I mean, what they're putting up in terms of Hopper, in terms of overall growth, it's exactly what the bulls want, and he'll continue on the promise. I mean, next quarter that could be a 4 in front of it in terms of ultimately revenue.
We were talking in the green room before the show about how important this one stock is to a constellation of trades that make the stock market go higher or lower.
You know, it's hard to think back over literally centuries and find a single company that had so much sway over the global economy or the global financial markets. I don't think there is one that hasn't had any backing per se from a government, even like British
like
East
Cisco
Indies.
in 1990?
Not as big as this, relatively speaking. So it is incredibly important, not just for the people trading the tick by tick right after the earnings and the call, but also when you take back a step and think about the macro picture. And honestly, this is the heart of U.S. exceptionalism. When we talk about why the U.S. outperforms for decades or more, this is it. It's tech dominance. It's the weight of tech in our equity market. It's the fact that we have companies, the Mag 7 over the next 12 months will invest $500 billion in CapEx and R&D. Wow. So put that in context, Chips and Science Act was $52 billion. So this is many multiples of that. So it's just the scale of our dominance, and Nvidia is the cornerstone of it. So whether they disappointed or not, to me, it's the fact that you have this structural advantage.
Right.
Let me make one point about that. And I think that's really interesting. That's the estimate for $500 billion in CapEx and R&D over the next, what did you say?
Next year.
Okay. So if it comes in at 450, or just think about that. What happens to these stocks? Like, they're going to go down a lot. And you know what I mean? It wouldn't incrementally take, because estimates are going up. And the one thing I'll just say, if you go back to Microsoft, they're 19% customer of Nvidia, right? And we talk about CapEx, how much it went up. It didn't go up that much, right, after they reported. And so we're not seeing the sort of step functions that we saw, let's say, 3 quarters ago and that sort of thing. They also talked about being capacity constrained. One of the reasons why they didn't have higher revenues. Now, their cloud business is growing 31%, year over year, which is fantastic. They're taking market share from AWS. I just kind of feel like we're going to go from capacity constrained to capacity over, built, that sort of thing, in the not so distant future. And so when you're coming in and you're beating these numbers just by a hair, and the stocks are still sticking around, it shows you that investors still want the exposure, but sooner or later, I think it's going to be like one of those things where you're going to start seeing a couple quarters of declines by not just the picks and shovels, but also the hyperscalers.
I think that's a ways off, though, and I think that the hard part of owning Nvidia is if everybody knows, all right, 6 quarters from now, they're going to have slower growth. when do you exit?
Yeah.
But you want to exit before all the other people decide to exit. So I don't know. There's the rub. Sure.
Tech giants and AI startups are all hungrily awaiting Nvidia's new Blackwell chip. We found out overnight that Japanese tech firm SoftBank will be the first to get their hands on them. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang announcing that at an AI summit in Japan. Let's turn to Deirdre Bosa for what brings us to this point in that relationship for today's Tech Check. Deirdre?
Who else but Masa-san, Kelly? Everything about this announcement was very on brand for Masayoshi-san, basically telling the world that he and SoftBank are going to be key players in the Gen AI shift, or at least make a very big run for it. For Nvidia, though, it does raise a question. If demand for Blackwell is insane, as Jensen Huang has said, then why put Masa-san at the front of the line instead of an OpenAI or Google or a company at the forefront of LLM advancements? A source tells me that it was simple. SoftBank's order was early and it was big. It also comes just as the debate is heating up over whether AI advancements have peaked. A big deal with SoftBank could also let Huang and Nvidia diversify away from its large U.S. customers to new opportunities in sovereigns like Japan. Now, overnight in Tokyo, Huang praised Masa-san as the only entrepreneur and innovator in the world that has selected or partnered with the tech winner in every generation, from Bill Gates to Jerry Yang to Jack Ma. He was even the largest shareholder of Nvidia at one point, leading to this moment.
Many of you probably don't know this, but at one point, Masa was the largest shareholder of Nvidia. Oh. It's okay. We can cry together.
Oof. Has the time changed at all since you came out with that?
It was 9 p.m.
Okay.
And now we're 9:30.
Okay,
10 p.m.
got it. So my other question to you, since there are so many commentary, there's so much comments on Blackwell, how production will ramp up into fiscal 2026, the production shipments will begin in the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2025, which is the current quarter. Does Nvidia break out Blackwell revenue, or is this something that you and investors always need to reverse engineer out of the data center numbers?
Yeah, essentially investors reverse engineer it. But if you look in terms of some of the wording there, basically saying any of those heating issues, don't worry about it. And I think that's going to give more and more comfort. This is going to ramp significantly in terms of that. And I think that continues to be the story, because we've talked about from our Asia trip, demand to supply 15 to 1. And there's only one game in town, and he's wearing a black leather jacket. His name's Jensen. And I think that's why this continues to be still in the early days of what I believe we'll be talking about $4 trillion on.
You mentioned the overheating issues, and these are Blackwell, overheating, which might require redesign of the servers housing the chips. And the companies that make the servers are Dell, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, Supermicro. Do they end up carrying the cost of having to redesign everything?
Yeah, but ultimately, I think that is something that's really noise. And from all the checks we do, that's why, look, when you're at the top of the mountain, you're always going to have people trying to take shots at you. But if you look at how NVIDIA is playing out here, there's really no production issues as this all ramped. And that's why when you hear from Jensen today, I think investors are going to realize this AI revolution, now it's about second, third, fourth derivatives. You look what's going to play out across software, across the rest of semis, across cybersecurity. If you're a tech bull, this, combined with obviously the last few weeks in terms of Trump, Musk, and everything we see, this is what I think is really going to be a setup to a Santa Claus rally.
So we are seeing Nvidia saying that Blackwell is going to exceed supply for several quarters, but that there are some supply constraints. Now, you do those channel checks, Dan. Tell us the truth. Where have you seen those bottlenecks or those potential places where supply will be constrained?
Everyone's waiting in line. They're at the velvet ropes, and there's only one party, and that's really, in terms of NVIDIA and Jensen, I think the issue there is that you want those next chips. That's what everyone, that's the new oil or gold.
Yeah, but that's the customer side. I'm talking about from the supply side, from NVIDIA being able to actually deliver these.
It's ramping. Look, like any new production, any new chip, it's going to take time to ramp. But I would say if you thought relative to 3 months ago, ahead of expectations. So you sit there right now now, if Jensen's flying the plane, you're in 3A watching Netflix feeling pretty good.
In terms of pricing power, can Jensen Huang raise the prices of those Blackwell chips even more than what he has already? I mean, what are you expecting on that front? And should people look for maybe increased prices for those chips?
They definitely can, but right now, it's all about market share. They're just going to continue to go further and further out. Mm-hmm. And even when you look at what the hyperscalers are spending, you have now $400 billion of CapEx, AI CapEx, just in your sites. Then you think about sovereigns, you look at private, look at everything else. It just shows we are in an unparalleled, once in a 40-year tech trend, and that's why that Mount Rushmore is Jensen along with Nadella, Karp, and others.
You talked earlier about how there's a velvet rope and a lot of people waiting to buy these chips. The hyperscalers are at the front of the line, but if you bring in sovereign buyers into the mix, where do they stand? Do they get to jump the line?
Sovereign's in the middle of the line. They're saying, oh, my name's in the list. They're like, look, you can't get in front of these people in the front, and that's big tech. Sovereign's still in the middle of the line. They will get in, and then behind them, it's with the rest of the Fortune 2000. That's why we're going to be talking about next year or two, $4 trillion, $5 trillion. This tech bull market, still in the early days.
In conclusion, Dan Ives emphasizes Nvidia's dominant role in the AI industry, predicting continued growth despite challenges like supply constraints and Blackwell chip production issues. He believes Nvidia's strong position will drive the AI revolution and boost the broader tech market. With the potential for AI to reach trillions in value, Nvidia remains central to this transformation. Ives also highlights Nvidia's crucial influence on the global economy and U.S. tech dominance. While some growth slowdown may occur, Nvidia's leadership in innovation will keep it a major player in the tech landscape. How will Nvidia's AI advancements affect other industries in the future? Given supply challenges, how should investors approach Nvidia's long-term prospects?